hi.yeonni, jumping in after I've already filmed everything. This is a long video, clearly. I was gonna make it a part 1 and part 2, but then I think it's such an important story arc that it's just better that it's one video. So you know what? I wanna recommend pause this video right now, go grab a snack, go grab some tea, coffee, eat while I speak, whatever. It's a journey that we're gonna go on together. So there's that disclaimer. It's a long one, but it's a special one, so I hope you'll enjoy it. But yeah, it's a long one. You can clearly see, but I hope you enjoy. Okay, bye. Hi guys, it's me, Yeonni. Welcome back to my channel. I apologize for the background situation right now. I'm in the middle of a move. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, and I'm moving to Seattle finally this Saturday. So I've been living out of a suitcase for the past week, but I kept my camera because I knew if I felt inspired, making a video would be really good for my mental health and self-care. So here I am making a video today on a topic that I think is really important. And I think it's really important to make this video because so much of my identity is morphed into my work and what I do. I started doing some research into how I would put this video together, and then I remembered a few months ago I actually did a quick interview with a nonprofit up in Canada called Project T, like T-E-A, and I spoke to the founder. Her name is Lexi, I believe Lexi, and the founder Lexi reached out to me asking if she could ask me a few questions about my identity as an Asian American and how that has shaped, you know, where I am today being a mental health provider. And, you know, answering those questions was such a cathartic experience for me, and I was really happy to be able to share a little bit of my experience to maybe help with what their missions and values are. And, you know, getting into that, I have their website open here. They're Project T, T-E-A, because they want to teach and educate the East Asian community about the concept of self-identity and emotional wellness. And how they're doing that is they want to engage the youth in the East Asian communities through like open conversations and hosting events. So a lot of what I wanted to say in this video, I already said in the interview. So I'm pretty much going to regurgitate my answers in that interview in video form today and kind of add on a little bit more at the end of what it's like being an Asian American therapist and the challenges and the rewards that have come with that. So it's gonna be kind of a long video, so let me just get straight into it. So the first question that they asked me was, what's your ethnicity and multicultural experience? I am South Korean, born in Seoul. I moved to the States when I was 6 years old in 1999, I believe. I was born on April 4th, 1994. I was only in first grade at the time when I moved, but I distinctly remember how stark the transition was for myself and my family. I just remember feeling like my family had landed into this vacuum where I could not understand anything going on because of the language barrier. All of the signs and everything was so confusing. They all looked like worms to me. You know, we moved to a predominantly Caucasian town. There were not many Asians, especially when we first moved there. There was like no Asians. And at the time, we didn't have the language or the awareness necessary to put like labels on what our experiences were, like my family and I. But now that I look back, we faced a lot of racism and discrimination while living in that community. One example would be like when I would go grocery shopping with my mom, and my mom would, you know, my mom doesn't know English, she's just trying her best. And I remember we were at the checkout line and the cashier started laughing at my mom because she had an accent. And then I remember specifically being angry because laughter, that kind of nonverbal cue, is clearly something that you don't need words to understand. I could see my mom was visibly upset. This man was laughing at her. I became so angry, and he brought more of his friends over from like the other cash registers. And if I remember correctly, they were like egging her on to keep speaking so they could make fun of her. And no one stepped in. We didn't have smartphones back then to document it and, you know, expose these people. So it was really rough growing up in that environment, and it really messed a lot with my identity. The second question that they asked me was, growing up as an Asian American, have you felt that you face more expectations from your parents to achieve greater success than your peers who are not Asian? And I said, of course. At the time, it felt so unfair that like Susie Q and Jeremy and Steven and all these people were like, whether they were trying their best or not, it felt like their interactions with their family was a lot more casual, like not as scary or strict as my interactions were with my parents. I felt like my parents were being really strict, unreasonable, and having really unrealistic expectations for a child because, like when you're a child, I think, at least for me, I was aware I was a child, that I'm not going to be perfect. And I was in like first grade. I'm like, if I screw up first grade, like I'll try again in second grade and third grade. And I'm like, I'll learn and whatever. But now that I look back, there's always a lot of more clarity in retrospection. The kind of stepping into my parents' shoes at the time, in their perspective, what a good parent was and what a good child was, those terms had they looked very different to them than they looked to me or to my environment. So their standards were different, but I can't blame them for that. There were cultural reasons for that, generational issues for that. And me, having been thrown into this kind of like Western culture and education, I was coming home with a lot of information that my parents had never learned before. Like they learned differently from their Korean background, educational background. So it was kind of the beginning of like a wall that I felt between me and my parents because I was starting to kind of come into my own identity of who I am and blah, blah, blah. And who I am in the outside world was very different from who I was in the inside world with my parents. And yet, no matter where I was, I didn't really feel like I truly belonged. And that leads to the third question, which was, which mental wellness related issues have you personally experienced or thought deeply about? And I'm gonna just read this part because, when you type something out, you have more time to edit things. So I feel like I worded this pretty well. So I'm just gonna read it. I think as far as I can remember, I struggled deeply with wanting to feel like I belonged. Whether it was the family environment that I grew up in as a child or being the only Asian kid in town, or honestly, probably a lot of both, I always wanted to belong. This desire led to many childhood and adolescent years of self-criticism and people-pleasing behavior that were absolutely debilitating to my sense of self. When I entered college, I experienced some severely traumatic experiences that hurt me physically, emotionally, and mentally. I have been dealing with anxiety. I'm not crying, it's just allergies, I promise. I have been dealing with anxiety, panic attacks, and depression all my life, and only through finding my own coping skills, supportive circles, and therapy have I been able to deal, learn, and move forward. But it's a continuous journey of checking in with myself and doing self-care. Like eating food to sustain my body, I need to engage in self-care to sustain my mental health. This part, when I answered this, was initially an essay. I had to kind of shorten it up for them, but I struggled a lot with wanting to belong. I wanted to belong with my family, but I felt like I was already so different. I wanted to belong at school with the other kids, but I looked different. I spoke a different language. I came from an entirely different background. I moved from like another freaking country on the other side of the world. I wanted to belong in my community. I wanted to belong. And that kind of wanting to belong, as I already kind of said in the interview, led to many years of, I think I just kind of blamed it on myself a lot. I had a lot of social anxiety growing up because I was eager to please anyone who would help me to feel like I belonged, and I was a people pleaser. I was a goody two-shoes. I let people step all over me. I was fake. That was a big thing. Like, I can admit that now. I was really fake. I didn't want to do certain things for people, but like I did it just so they would give me something out of it, which was the feeling of acceptance and feeling of belonging. So, but then like when kids would accuse me of being fake, I'd be like so heartbroken because I couldn't connect like the deeper issue that I had with why was I being such a people pleaser. I just thought, I'm just a nice person. Why are people so mean to me? And I do think I'm still a nice person. I think my intentions were pure, but the execution was just not transparent to my peers because it was so, where would I start explaining to them that all of this stems from my deeper issues of wanting to belong? Like, where do you even begin a conversation like that? How has your culture shaped your identity? Yeah, so I struggled immensely with my cultural identity. Maybe because it was the age that I moved to the States where I wanted to, belong so much, but the way I looked, the food that my parents packed for me for lunch, the language that I spoke, it all was like other, outsider. And I hated that, so I did not want to be Korean. I didn't want to look like this or speak my language. I felt like because I was like this, no one was liking me, and I had a lot of aggression and anger towards myself and a lot of aggression and anger towards my parents. And there was an incident that happened when I was 8, so 2 years after moving to the States, and I still remember it now. And it's just kind of, it speaks volumes on how like my child like brain was struggling so much with my cultural identity. It was Halloween, and I remember, you know, there was like a Halloween party at school, you know, so like kids can stay safe and stuff. So like they would change the gymnasium and put like games in there, and kids would come and like all dressed up and blah blah blah. And I remember I wanted to be a fairy that year, you know, 8-year-old girl, you know, I wanted to be a fairy. And then there was a blonde wig that came with the fairy outfit. And honestly, I was so excited. My parents didn't want me to wear the wig because it was like a cheap wig. It looked pretty ugly. But when I put that blonde wig on and looked at myself in the mirror, I felt it was so beautiful. And okay, now I'm a little teary-eyed now thinking of like poor baby girl, like having that blonde wig and not having this black hair. I felt beautiful and I felt like I belonged. And when I went to that Halloween party, I was like, I am so cute. I had the best time. And even when I got home that night, I took off my fairy costume. I was in my PJs, but I wore that blonde wig. And I almost wore to school the next day, but my mom yelled at me, so I couldn't. But thank God, thank you, Mom, now that I look back. But I struggled a lot with my cultural identity, as you can see. And before I move on to the next part, like, because it took me so long to appreciate and love my culture and being Korean, I cherish it so much more now, I think. I feel so thankful that through those difficult times, it's like I had to kind of like claw my way to the appreciation part where I pushed it away and I hated it, and now I'm just like, it's a part of me that makes me so much stronger than I was ever before. And it's such a, like, my cultural identity is, it doesn't look like my parents' identity. You know, if there was like a color to it or like some sort of artistic representation of what my cultural identity looks like, that's a really great art therapy project, actually. Anyway, sorry, the therapist in me is like, I could use that. Anyway, so yeah, my cultural identity looks so different from my parents, and how their canvas will looks so different from any other Korean American out there. And because of that, it's so important, and because of that, I cherish it so much more now. How did you think your degree in psychology helped you find your calling? I loved this question because I never really thought about it until they asked me, and I really had to sit down. I like held on to these questions for days, really processing the answers so I could be as transparent as possible. But I didn't go into college wanting to study psychology. I was actually, when I was going into college, I had turned down like a full scholarship to an art school. I got a full presidential scholarship to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and all of high school I was prepping for art school because I really loved art. And then I ended up going to a big like state school because my parents didn't really want me to dive so like hard into such a niche like art, you know, studio art. They wanted me to try out different degrees and different kinds of classes, and I don't know why I didn't fight it more. I don't know, everything happens for a reason. So I ended up going to a bigger state school, and so I was like, I still want to do something related to art, so I thought I was going to be an art historian. So I went into school with an art history major, and I took an art history course, and I needed to, you know, take some random extra courses. So I took a Psych 101 course because everyone was taking it. Apparently it was easy. And fate just kind of had its way of working with me, where then again, like, it wasn't after that psych class where I was like, I'm gonna be a therapist, but I loved that Psych 101 class. Everything was so fascinating, like studying the way people think and the way they feel and how it's all connected and how people like respond and react to one another. And in contrast, art history was so boring for me. I'm sorry, like, I love museums, I love going there, but like the act of just shoving so much information into my head, like this was painted in this period by this person using this technique, using these materials, like it didn't give me a chance to really appreciate the art. So that's when I realized, okay, it's not really for me. But that's really what sparked my interest in psychology, and I wanted to take more classes. And I feel like as I was getting to know more about psychology and these concepts and terms, I think deep inside of me, I wanted to find out what was wrong with me in a way. Growing up, I kind of explained to you a little bit of what it was like first moving to the States and growing up in the environment, but I always felt like there was something wrong with me, like maybe that's why I couldn't belong with my family or like my friends. There was always like this idea or theme of like, I explore my feelings too much and it's like a detriment to me and it's not good to linger too much on feelings. That was kind of like what I was taught at home. And so I was like, okay, there's something wrong with me. I need to figure that out. And I think that kind of subconsciously made me more interested in psychology. And little did I know, this journey to kind of fix myself became this journey of self-discovery, where I realized this thing that I thought was a weakness or an issue that I had was actually kind of a gift in a way, something that I could be proud of, something I could really use to not only get to know myself better, but help others and get to know others better. And the fact that like processing emotions is good, like having good insight and being a good listener and understanding and wanting to know more about feelings is good. And it's good for me because I'm human and humans have feelings and it's good to talk about it. It was like, whew. Psychology gave me like a new language that I feel like all my life I was just screaming to try to understand and try to put into words my experiences. And it was like an enlightening experience when I started to learn more about psychology. Number 6, what is your current profession and how did you decide to pursue this career path? This was while I was still at my last job, but I said I'm a clinical team lead therapist at a substance abuse outpatient program. After studying undergrad, I knew I wanted to get into a field where I could have more human interactions and help people. And I actually didn't know about the field of social work until senior year of college. I knew I wanted to do like clinical psychotherapy. I cared a lot about a lot of social justice and advocacy. And when I learned more about social work and like the ethics of social work and how it's so client-centered and where it's so empowering for the client, I really felt like this was the right field for me. We know that you have a successful YouTube channel. What was your initiative for starting this YouTube channel? This isn't my first YouTube channel actually. In high school, I had a YouTube channel for song covers because I like to sing. It's deleted now, so don't try to look for it. The second time around when I started this YouTube channel, I think it was in 2014 when I started uploading like my face onto YouTube. I wanted a channel where I held discussions on mental health and social justice topics because I couldn't find a lot of those on YouTube, and maybe YouTube isn't the place for those kinds of serious discussions. Sometimes when I have controversial videos, my videos really aren't that controversial, but a lot of people are like, why did you post this? People come to YouTube for entertainment, and I understand that. But my mission is if they can stop by one of my videos and get some tips on how to deal with their anxiety, or if they've been depressed and they've been watching 20 hours of cat videos to deal with it, but if they come across one of my videos on letting them know that it's okay to feel depressed, and if they get something positive out of my videos that could help them with their mental health, that is amazing. So it's like a gateway in a way. When I make like fashion videos and vlogs, like not only are those fun for me creatively, but I make those videos because I understand that there's a lot of them, so they get recommended more, so they get a lot more views, so which means that other people will come to my channel, and when they click on my channel, I want them to see that like this channel has other videos that could potentially help me. And it means so much to me that I can just sit down and make these videos and talk, and it could make someone's day a little bit better. It's so powerful and just reminds me that this isn't just a job for me, this is a joy, and this is such a passion of mine to talk about these topics. And yeah, that's why I do my YouTube, so I can connect with you guys who I could hopefully help out even just a little bit. Number 8, are there any changes in people's perceptions of mental wellness that you hope to see in our Asian community? I'm gonna read this one too just because it's really important and it took me a while to word it succinctly. I am hoping for more safe discussions on mental health in our Asian community. I emphasize safe because of the strong negative stigma that exists. There are so many Asian Americans who suffer in silence, and I envision a future where we can begin to explore and embrace conversations on dealing with mental illness and grappling with asking for help. When you say vision, I find myself seeing a physical vision of a group of Asian Americans sitting in a room together, Asian Americans who are young, old, members of the LGBTQ community, abled and disabled, and everyone else sitting in a room together, sharing their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and crying, laughing, experiencing anger, and all of the range of emotions because they can and they want to. I work hard every day and keep speaking up as a mental wellness advocate to work towards such environments someday. I totally, even now, have those interactions with people in my community where they ask me, what do you do for work? And I tell them I'm a therapist. And there's always like a, oh, ... Just because, and there's probably lots of layers to that as well, depending on who I'm talking to. But I want to be able to have these conversations that I'm having with you right now, the camera, and see, my camera died because this is too long. But what was I saying? That's what I want. I want to be able to have these candid conversations with people in my community, whether it's my friends, my Asian American friends, whether it's my Asian American family. That's a whole nother mountain to climb, but I want it. That's my vision. That's what I work hard for. That's why I make these videos and do my work and why I speak up. That's what I want. Number 9, any advice for our East Asian peers who are struggling with self-identity or mental challenges? My answer was, remember that you are not alone. While we are at times grossly underrepresented in mainstream conversations on mental health and mental illness, we exist. Like, we're here. I'm here. And I know for a fact I've spoken to a few of you, a lot of you, and you are there. You exist. And it's important to not isolate and support ourselves in support circles, whether it's friends, campus counseling centers, entities like Project T. I want to tell everyone who may identify with me and my situation in this conversation in any way that you're not alone. Your story, whatever your story may be, is essential to this movement of raising awareness and combating negative stigma in our Asian communities. Like, your story can change lives, and that's powerful. And those are the answers that I gave to Project T for my interview, but I wanted to finish off this video by talking a little bit about what it's like for me being Korean American, what it's been like for me being a mental health provider. And certain words that came up for me: isolation, underrepresentation, and complacency. And let me dive into those real quick. And isolation, I feel like being in this path for me for the past, when did I really commit to this? I think it's like 2014, 2015, because before 2014, I was kind of like a dead person on the inside, and 2014 is when this journey of self-discovery really started. So for the past 6 years, let's say, it's a pretty lonely road, I'll say that. I have really amazing friends, really amazing family, but specifically when it comes to Asian American mental health and social justice and these topics, it's been kind of a lonely road. And a lot of the times that's been really hard for me, because it's hard to talk to my family about the job that I do, because I know it makes them uncomfortable. And because I know more now about why and the cultural implications of the things that I'm talking about, I understand. But it doesn't mean that it makes it any easier on me, who is a mental health professional. But because of the isolation, I think I've really been training and doing a lot of advocacy, speaking up more, agreeing to do these kinds of interviews and putting it out there. I am an Asian American therapist. I am here. We are important. Putting it out there, speaking up, visibility, trying to find a community in that sense, and trying to, it's an ongoing process. It's hard to find community when there's not many people out there. And that goes into the second one, which is underrepresentation. Asian Americans just in general are underrepresented when it comes to the conversations on mental health and mental illness treatment. And not only in the sense of patients, there's not that many patients, because many Asians, it's hard for them to seek help, or a lot of times they don't even understand that this kind of help exists. I had a Korean client my last month of work, and I wanted to work with her so badly, but I knew I was leaving, so that wouldn't be good for her. But I had to explain to her what therapy was, and she was like, why would I do that? I'm on medicine. And there was so much counter transference where I was like, girl, I feel you. I know what you mean, because so much of like Asians, so much of the Asian community of understanding mental illness is there is no understanding. There's a, oh, you're sick, here's medicine, take it, you'll be fine. Like when someone has cancer, you wouldn't be like, ooh, you have cancer, okay, take medicine, you'll be fine, don't talk about it anymore. No, like there is an outpouring of love and like community and like solidarity. But when you hear that someone is schizophrenic, you know, or has some sort of, is bipolar, borderline, there's all of these like trigger labels that make people treat others in ways that are not fair and are not accurate. And add with that already, and like add on the layer of like the cultural stigma and generations of that, it's just, there's a lot of underrepresentation of us when it comes to patients, but also in the field of mental health. And interestingly, from what I noticed in undergrad and also in social work school and also working, there are more Chinese Americans, I realize, more Chinese American providers, not that many Korean American providers. And I don't know what that's about, but it's fascinating. And obviously I want to do more research and figure that stuff out, because being Korean American, I obviously have like a very strong desire and will and passion to help my community as well. And there's not that many Korean American providers out there. And the way I deal with the underrepresentation, I think, is I represent myself. I don't quit. I go to conferences, I sign up for trainings. I know I'm the only Asian American there like 95% of the time. If there's like one other Asian, I'm like, hey, what's up? And then I try to engage with them, share numbers, like follow each other on LinkedIn, do that kind of networking stuff. But the networking is like not important. It's the fact that I see you, you see me, we're here representing. And there's kind of like a, yes, like, you know, I'm representing my people and I'm gonna keep doing this. And this is a statement in itself that we exist. And thirdly was complacency, I believe. And this is just something I've come across a lot in school, where everyone seems to, a lot of people seem to know that Asians are underrepresented, in both sides, where the clients, patients, and like providers, especially mental health. There's a lot of Asian doctors, that's for sure, but mental health providers. But I come to wonder, what's being done about that? I've read a lot of journals about, you know, like, engage them. There's some articles that were like, engage them, but don't talk about like the big words, mental health. Keep them coming by doing case management, helping them with practical things, and then eventually like you'll work on your rapport and they'll start to trust you more. So there are papers out there, but it's like, I feel like so much more can be done. Outreach is so important in this field. Outreach and engaging and using words and terms that are friendly and understandable to Asian communities. As a provider, there have been times where I was like, it is what it is. There's like, no one that looks like me is in this field. Oh, she came for the intake but didn't show up for the therapy session. Oh, she's Asian. Okay, makes sense. It's like, no. It shouldn't end there. It makes sense understanding the numbers and statistics that many Asians don't follow up, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. However, what's being done about it? And I myself have my personal mission of when I'm serving my clients and my agencies, that I offer my opinion and 2 cents all the time, especially when it comes to working with Asian clients. And a lot of times it's hard for minorities because we are expected to represent ourselves in every situation, and like that's a lot of pressure on one person, and I get that. But I make it my mission to represent myself and my people in this field, because who else is going to do it if I don't? So if I have a client who's Asian and who doesn't want to do group therapy, but like it's better for their substance use treatment that they do group therapy, I have advocated for those clients saying, hey, you know, because this person is Asian, you know, talking about their substance use issues with one person is already hard enough, but in a group setting, that's really, really kind of unheard of in our culture. And I'm not saying that I like put my experience on that person, but it's kind of like putting it, when we have like clinical meetings, it's kind of like putting it out there. By the way, don't forget, this person is Asian American, this person's culture is very against what we're all doing here. And we want to be as extra sensitive and caring and accommodating to this person to help them the best. Because if we lose them, we can't help them. That's what I've been experiencing and seeing, a lot of isolation, underrepresentation, complacency. And as you can see, it riles me up because yeah, it gets me down sometimes. It's hard. It's a lonely road, like I said. However, I exist. Other Asian providers exist. Like I said, I see them across the room and I'm like, hey, I see you, and it's awesome. And I talk to you guys that message me, like, you may not be Asian American, you may be like Hispanic and whatever other underrepresented populations are in the mental health field. You exist. I exist. We're here. We're breathing. And I'm not gonna shut up until I until I show the world that we exist. So yeah, this video is so long. I apologize, but it was such an important video. I brought you guys along on a journey of where I'm from, how I grew up, how my identity and my cultural identity, my mental health has been affected throughout the years of my life, and how that has led ultimately to where I am sitting today, being an Asian American mental health provider. I kind of gave you more of an insight into what that's been like for me, the challenges, but clearly the rewards of it all, and just what I do on my channel. I try to be as honest and transparent with you all and share with you something I'm so passionate about, that I love so much. And yeah, I really, really, really hope this video was helpful to any of you out there to feel like you belong, like you are seen. And if anything, you've learned a lot more about me, that's for sure. So that's great too. I want to make more like Asian American, Korean American focused topics on here. So yeah, I mean, if you have suggestions, let me know. That'd be great too. I love making videos. Yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you like this, so I'll make more of these things. And yeah, I hope everyone is staying safe mentally, physically, emotionally, all of that. Sending all positive vibes and strength through the lens to all of you. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.